yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, too tired. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment, so we have the other contributors come in and provide some work for the week. Welcome to episode 782 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. In short, we like to call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KSWA's 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, let's bring our contributors onto the stage. And while we're doing that, today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting, educational consultant, and data analytics. With that being said, let me jump right to it. Charles, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. A little tired from the weekend, but doing well. I had a great opportunity to broadcast HBCU Power Series, so got my baseball fix in and came back last night and we had broadcasting Texas Southern and Southern on SWAC TV. So whirlwind weekend. Got both sports.
Man, you had your hands full with comebacks. You did a great job. I got to listen in to a couple of those games, particularly your Sunday games that come back by Grambling over Alabama A&M, and then Monday you top it off with another comeback. This one's Texas Southern over Southern. Classic matchups as we come to love in the SWAC. Basketball is the thing of the day, so I'm going to go to you, AD Drew, because you are part of a rivalry classic.
Instant classic.
Up in every way possible.
Instant classic. As Morehouse walked down Clark Atlanta.
He say walk
and I mean,
I like it. I mean, truth is the truth.
I mean, if you want, I can play the clip. If you want me to play the clip, if you got time for me to play the clip.
I don't want to play the clip because I think y'all did such a great job. What I want to tell folks is to go check out you all show on Sunday night where you all broke down the clip, did different takes. You broke down a picture on there. I thought the job that you did on Sportswear with Brian was fascinating, and I want to drive people to go see it there because it was just such a great job. You know, in terms of just sports talk, obviously we focus on HBCU, but the way you all were able to bob and weave, provide contextual framing to that in terms of the culture, I think was outstanding. So yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't reward you all for telling folks, go check out Sports Rap from last Sunday. You can Google fast forward, you on YouTube, you can get to where they're talking. You'll see the shots Morehouse. But do yourself a favor and go check that out.
Yeah, you know, we appreciate that, Dr. Cavil. And I know we'll get into it as we get into our news of the day. But the one thing Morehouse basketball team did, despite being down 18 points at one point in time in the game, was we kept hope alive.
Yeah. That's appropriate, and we certainly are going to pay a moment of silence like we like to do. But before we do that, I'd be remiss if I didn't let Wilton Jackson II come in and tell us a little bit about how things are going for him, what's on his mind.
Doc, today's been a good day. To Charles' point, kind of tired as well. Got a chance to call some of the games with him and Santori on Friday.
Y'all old men, y'all young.
I'm I don't have that. I'm not as old as Charles, but at the same time, I can definitely say like they had more of a grind than I did because I did all the games on Friday, and then Saturday I had another assignment, and then Sunday I came back for the final game, Jack State versus Alcorn. So baseball is definitely a different grind from a lot of other sports.
Pace yourself.
Yes, you definitely have to do that for sure. But I mean, so much to talk about. I mean, we're really getting into some of the really, really good days of like basketball in the month of February. So I'm just excited.
I tease you all because I care, but I wanted to highlight the talent that you all are bringing to the table. The fact of how you were able to enter in this space. Obviously, when you talk about streaming platforms and how that's giving opportunity for individuals to show off their talent. But it's a lot of kudos. I feel really good about coming in this space and providing a platform and seeing where other individuals take it. So it's tremendous to see that happening literally as you're going through it. So, I'm quite dynamically proud in terms of what you all are getting done. So keep pushing forward, keep getting it done. As I said, we will get into a break in silence. We'll do that at the end. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the new cost of going to FBS. I kind of teased this out when I saw Sacramento make the move. And I was anticipating after I got a chance to listen to their dynamic president. He happens to be a twin. He is an alpha, so that gets you more listening time with me in terms of that. But I heard him talk about what he wanted to do to Sacramento State, the diversity of that institution, and how they are doing things differently. And I could tell that his framework of how he saw things was different. So when I heard the announcement about them seeking to go FBS, obviously they did the petition that didn't work. It didn't surprise me when I started also digging deeper and found out the media market of Sacramento, obviously with the NBA basketball team, but the financial with all of a lot of folks in that city that are doing really well in their goal to utilize football at the institution and moving to FBS to bring more brand recognition, not only to the institution, but the city. I knew that things would be a challenge, and it ultimately came to the case with $23 million they're going to pay. That does include the $5 million to the NCAA. We just had talked about last week, North Dakota State, that ponied up $18 million, including their $5 million to the NCAA. And it puts you in a different framework of what that means ultimately as we talk about here for HBCU. I did a study, now it seems 15 some years ago. It was when Dr. Charles McCullum was the vice president of athletics here at Texas Southern University. The president was Rudley, and they commissioned a study that I got to do. And when I did that study, this is before CFP. Not even now we're talking about expansion. It was before this. And I was reading data and thinking about the numbers. And after I did the study, when I went into the study, a lot of my thoughts was maybe HBCU should move to Division II, play all on the same platform. That platform coming out of the study, I could not run to his office fast enough to tell him, it's like, you got to make the move. I say, the money's going to be there. You got to get in. This window is going to be short. It's going to change. And Rudley had worked with quite a few of the presidents of the SWAC at the time, and they were serious about looking at an FBS move. And unfortunately, Texas Southern, as history would have it, actually got on the probation for football and basketball. Got really essentially a death penalty. And obviously that became the interest of what took place, and the FBS kind of died. Came back later. You got the college football playoff, and it was 4 times the projection of money provided than what I calculated. And so it was tough to kind of go through that and see that. And now you see where the money has exploded to, and just know that probably that window is realistically closed. But I wanted to ask you all, when you hear these numbers, obviously a lot of the aim that we've kind of talked about would be rivalries, attendance. Now that you see these numbers, where does it take you in terms of the talk that comes up ever so often about HBCU, some of the bigger brands going FBS? Obviously, you had FAMU pushed, and they were doing it relatively early. And a lot of that came down to the funding components of not being able to move forward. Probably somebody, a lot of ways, was well ahead of their time in terms of network that didn't really get off the ground that was going to help fund a lot of that, which stifled their move. Charles, I'll go with you first. In terms of studying a lot of this, having the luxury or the challenge of listening to me on sitting in the watering hole will be nice and calling that, and me, a functionary, telling you about the economics of football, where it's going over the last, it seems like 10 years now. You've probably gotten enough of that, but where is your mind now that you're in the classroom having the luxury to teach this, working on a doctorate in sports education as a concentration?
I think the numbers make it jarring. It's punching above, our weight class to some extent. I mean, $23 million. That opened my eyes. It turned my neck when I saw that, and I was like, okay, it's you can have the aspiration, to do FBS, but now that you see the cost, and it's for lack of better words, it's jarring to see what the actual cost is to actually get to the next level. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of it's the barrier. There's no simpler way to say it. There's a absolute economic barrier to moving up to FBS.
I'm going to go with you, Wilton, as you let us all know, the young man of the group. I'm sure you see this from a different perspective while I kind of tease you about that, but I like the dynamic because you bring in a perspective that we don't necessarily see, not saying good or bad, but it's different, which is important. So where are you when you heard this knowledge?
Well, Dr. Cavil, just looking at it from a logistical standpoint and just more of a common sense standpoint, I mean, it's hard financially to make a move like this, but even beyond the fact of the cost that it would take to make the transition from FCS to FBS. But I think when you start looking at it from a logistical standpoint, how many times do we have to talk about, like, say, for instance, if that was a thing that was to happen, the move, you talk about scholarships. How much more money would you have to incorporate for scholarships? What about the logistics for travel? Because here's the thing. The reality is, let's take, for example, like the Big Ten Conference. I never in a million years would I never have thought USC or UCLA would be a part of the Big Ten, and the travel that it takes to, for those two programs, I'm just using those for example, to travel across the country to go play Ohio State or Indiana and things like that.
How about Rutgers?
Hey, there you go. That's an even better example. So you start thinking about the logistics of what it would cost beyond just the initial fees to make the jump, or just the having the money to be able to move up to FBS. It just doesn't make sense. And I mean, to Charles' point, like you don't want to say it's above our weight class, but in a way, it is. That's a very simple way to put it.
That's interesting when you think about Tennessee State as one of the rationales they talked about staying where they were. Obviously, A&T, one of the guidelines, at least a lot of the folks would tell you that they were told that this was part of that, looking to move up. It's fascinating to see what that looks like for them based on this number. How different do they think about it? AD Drew, I'll let you opine.
We talking about just the cost of the move is more for than every HBCU athletic budget.
Yep.
Currently. Let's just pause right there.
Yeah.
The cost of the move is at minimum twice, and in some schools instances 3 times a lot of our schools' current athletic budgets. And even if we hit that scratch off and find that money, Dr. Cavil, the thing that has gotten us in trouble with these type things, we may have the initial money, the startup money, has been sustainability. We have not been able to consistently do what we need to do 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line to take care of this. And it's really been eye opening for me now that I'm deeper into athletic administration on the other side, and I'm really looking at a lot of the factors they go into this stuff. It's tremendous. And you think last comment, you got conferences like the Big Ten, the SEC, that have these multi-million dollar, approaching $1 billion media contracts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we not getting out there, we not touching that.
Nope.
So for us to go to some of these essentially G5 conferences, because that's where we would likely land, who have a couple $1 million, couple $100,000. Your payout per school might be a couple $100,000. Something about that don't math up to me as far as what it is. So the revenue, yes, we know we can get more in our quote unquote check games and stuff like that, but we got other things that we need to invest that $20 million in our campuses on than a one-time move.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of your thoughts. I will leave a little bit of hope. It is $5 million to
That's just
move up to the NCAA, right? So that's one thing. Obviously, this was about joining the conference, so there's some things associated with that that conference were not interested in expanding, but essentially these were institutions that thought it was so important to move up for FBS, particularly Sacramento State's president openly said this was about branding the institution in this modern era, about building. So I do want people to keep that in mind, that this was an enticement, as you would. This was about the ability to join and buy a conference. So the other question that still is out there that you can't get an answer to is, what would it take for a conference to move up? The guidelines are about an individual institution moving up, which is the $5 million to reclassify. There were some governing rules talking about that you had to have an invitation. But we have seen programs that operate as independents been able to make the move. So that's the one caveat that's out there that could create different dynamics versus seeking membership into a current FBS institution. And what does that mean? Because a lot of this money was based on the fact that these conferences could not get a significant enough broadcast revenue, and with the money associated with the House settlement, this is another way to get influx of money into your conference. So this money will go to the conference members. So think about that from that perspective too, that this is also a different way to do that. I want to pause on that because I want to get to our break. I just wanted to leave that out, do that, because I do want to do and get into a moment of silence for a civil rights leader, HBCU alum, Reverend Jesse Jackson, who passed and has become an ancestor at the time of his passing. He was 84. Jackson, who rose from student activism in Greensboro to becoming one of the nation's most influential voices for racial equality and social justice, passed away. His family confirmed. He was born in Greenville, South Carolina in 1941. Jackson attended North Carolina A&T in the early 1960s. Played football. A lot of people didn't realize Jackson played quarterback for the Aggies from 1962 to 64 and was part of the 1964 CIAA championship team. He also served as student body president after earning his sociology degree from A&T and later studying theology at Chicago Theological Seminary. Jackson joined the Southern Christian Leadership Conference under Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., became a close aide to King, and was president in Memphis in 1968, the tragic night of King's assassination. A moment that should shape Jackson's mission for the rest of his life. He also founded Operation Push, Rainbow Coalition. His presidential campaign is one of a lot of people our age in 1984, and then in 1988 broke barriers for African Americans in national politics, winning millions of votes and inspiring a new generation of leaders that we see today. Later in his life, he did battle health issues, including Parkinson's disease, but remained active in public life, frequently speaking on issues of voting rights, poverty, and education, as you could imagine. In 2021, he resigned as president of Rainbow Push Coalition, handing leadership to a new generation. So if we would, let's take a moment of silence for one of Reverend Jesse Jackson. With that, let's take our first break. We'll come back on the other side, and we'll get into a little bit talk of the mid-major division for the women. And we'll talk about the top 5 and see what you have to say. Based on that last segment, we come back and get a little bit of additional thoughts about the readers, give them a chance to stir some things up and get some final thoughts on that if we have time at the end of the show. But let's take our first break and come back on the other side and do just that.
For over 30 years, HBCU Image has been more than just an apparel store. We've been a movement, a state, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically black colleges and universities legendary. Whether you're a student or a lifelong supporter, our gear lets you wear your HBCU story with confidence and style. Because when you wear HBCU Image, you're not just wearing clothes. You're wearing culture. You're wearing pride. You're wearing purpose. HBCU Image, a Kenny T's company.
From cancer care to accidental injuries to cardiac care, we all know that there are times that you can't control what happens in your life. But with Globe Life Family Heritage, you can be prepared to weather the storm when it comes. Call Dr. Beverly Eagle Rogers at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at globelifefamilyheritage.com. With over 25 years of serving communities, Dr. Beverly Eagles Rogers is here to help you and your family through difficult times. Dr. Beverly takes pride in Globe Life being one of the few companies that returns 100% of premiums to clients that stay healthy. So for more information, call Dr. Beverly Eagle Rogers at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at globelifefamilyheritage.com.
Test the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's jump right into the top 5 division. I'll tell you about this in terms of the mid-major division in week number 7. Boy, we're moving through the season, gentlemen. Nobody dropped out this week, so let's look at those receiving some votes. Not a lot of changes here either, but you do have Paul Quinn Lady Tigers sit at 13-5, 8-1. You have Oakwood Lady Ambassadors sitting at 16-7, 10-1, 35 and 26 points respectively. As you see, another NAIA program, Wiley Lady Wildcats. Those programs all out of the HBCU AC, 13-7 and 7, 2 other Lady Wildcats. And we slide back in here to the CIAA with the Virginia State Lady Trojans sitting at 17-5, 11-3. And we have the Lady Lane Dragons, 15-5, 14-5 with 16 points. Let's get into the top 5 in terms of what this looks like. No team dropped out, so you do know you're going to see all top 5 of these programs. And we're starting out with number 5, Fayetteville State, the Lady Bronco. Get to the 20-win margin, 20-4, 18-3, 36 points. But they remain number 5, bringing us to number 4. You have none other than the Miles Lady Golden Bears as they sit at 18-3. That's 12-2 on the conference race, 42 points. They remain in the 4th spot. You see things just floating along as the same they were last week, it seems. Let's see at number 3. Edward Waters, the Lady Tigers, also hit that 21 mark, 20-4, 18-3. One first place vote, 56 points, but they remain in 3 spot. Number 2, where we get a little bit of the shakeup, Langston Lions, Lady Lions, get to 23-3, 17-3, 3 first place vote. They did have a loss, which hurt them in the standings, ultimately dropping down 1 spot as they were 1 last week. They do still hold on to 3 first place vote, where some people think they're number 1, 64 points. That brings us to the new number 1. The Winston-Salem State Lady Rams return to the top spot in week number 7 as they just keep rolling, 22-2 on the season, 13-1 in the conference race, 5 first place votes, 66 points. And as I said, they move up a spot and hold the number 1 ranking as they were number 2 last week. Let me go to you, Charles. What are your thoughts in terms of the rankings?
So, quick question: in both Fayetteville State and Winston-Salem State, if they are tied in the division, the first tiebreaker would be their overall record.
Usually the first tiebreaker is head to head.
Okay, head to head. So they've each beat each other.
One. Mm-hmm. And then oftentimes the tiebreaker is what you do in the divisions.
Okay.
The CIAA is a little different because they have conference records, and then they also have division records that they hold on to. So you would imagine it's probably division standings. And then the next one that's usually out there is like point differential.
Okay. That's because I was looking at their next 2 games, and they both have they both look like they'll finish 9-1. So I was curious about, from a division standpoint, they'll be tied. But what was the first tiebreaker in terms of who would win the division?
Yeah, as you go down, I think they're probably going to get to the point where you look at point differential. That's usually the second one. I usually look at head to head. I know the SWAC is head to head, and then the next one is point differential, and then you got some of those more complicated ones. So you're usually safe with head to head.
Yeah.
And then point differential usually breaks it up. But in some cases where you got to the point where both teams beat each other by the same amount of points, and you have to get into some your record against the top division opponents as you ascend down the ranking.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my only question about the just looking at the top 5 this week, because I was just curious over the next 2 games. I'm like, well, it looks as though both of them will finish 9-1 in division. So I was just curious as to where it might go from there. Who would win the division?
That's what you need to start looking at this time of year. When you get to the second half of the decision, that's what I look at. What were your head-to-head rank? What were your point differential? I just saw one yesterday where everybody split. You looked at Pine Bluff on the men's side, and the point differential was that Pine Bluff on the men's side beat Alabama A&M by 13. Mm-hmm. Last night, Alabama got some payback, but they only beat them by 12.
Got it.
They were tied, as they are now, but it was at the end of the season. The tiebreaker with those 2 teams would be Pine Bluff getting the edge because of point differential. So it's real. Let me go to you, AD Drew, since Charles likes the poll and he wants to get in the tiebreakers. He said, hey, this is going to get real interesting tournament seed. What are your thoughts in terms of the top 5, AD Drew?
It's ironic, Charles, that you brought up tiebreakers, and because this really gets interesting, specifically I'm talking about the SIAC, because of not 1 but 2 consecutive weekends when we had the weather going on throughout the southeast. There are a lot of teams who have to take that open week that we have before the tournament and play some makeup games. And there are some games where one team needs to play the game because they need the game because it may affect them in their position in standings, and the other team doesn't need it because their position is pretty much locked. And based on if a makeup game on Monday night and a certain team wins, that may force another makeup game Wednesday or Thursday because now it has changed. And so it's hectic in the SIAC. But get back to the poll, Dr. Cavil. And I've spent all day calculating that on the men's side, Charles. That's why that was interesting that you said that. Doc, nailed it. Nailed it, Doc.
Thank you.
The only thing that you could possibly do is flip Miles and Edward Waters because Miles still has national rankings over Edward Waters. That's the only thing that could be that you could make an argument for. But other than that, Doc, I think everybody nailed it.
Good stuff. Wilton, before we get into our second break, what are your final thoughts of the segment?
I think starting with Fayetteville State at number 5, I think that's correct. You talk about Talia Trotter. She had a really good game. Well, actually, a trio of games recently that she stood out on. I thought she's been playing well. And, of course, Fayetteville State has been continuing to play well. I'm interested to see, could it potentially be another matchup between them and Winston-Salem State later on? Because that's just really intriguing. And to Charles' point when he brought up that they both played each other and both have a win against each other, I'm really intrigued to see what that may look like in the coming weeks for this poll, but just in between for those two teams as well. To Drew's point, I feel like I can kind of agree with that. You could potentially switch Miles and Edward Waters, but as far as like 2 and 1, like number 2 with Langston, I'm okay with Langston being number 2, and I'm also okay with Winston-Salem being number 1. So you did good.
Yeah.
You did good. I like
before we move off the Division 2, the mid-major, everybody please note regional rankings, men and women, Division 2. First regional rankings come out tomorrow.
Great.
CIA in the Atlantic, SIAC is in the South region.
Let's make sure we share a little bit of that on Thursday and give people updates. They won't take the time to go look, but certainly we'll be looking for us to give that update. Good job, AD Drew, in terms of keeping us in terms of those regional rankings. With that being said, let's take our second break. Get into off the first half of the show. We'll be back on the other side. Wilton Jackson II has another appointment that he has to get to, so we want to make sure we let him do his work because we want to keep him coming back looking as dapper as he does. Want to give him a shout out for that bow tie. You're wearing it well, my friend. I
appreciate that, Doc.
Yeah, every Kappa can do it like you. I'll say that. Yeah, every Kappa can't do it like you. You must be one of those special ones. Good job. With that, we'll take a second break. We'll come back on the other side. This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app. As we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
For over 30 years, HBCU Image has been more than just an apparel store. We've been a movement, a statement, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically black colleges and universities legendary. HBCU Image, a Kenny T's company.
Compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington. As you know, he's out on assignment. We have Charles Bishop and A.D. Drew giving you a different viewpoint in this segment. Look in the center there. It's pretty sharp. Books in the background look real deanish. With that being said, let's get into the major division for the women's side of things. Charles, you can laugh. I know you had a long day. You worked that hard. Let's get to it as we tease everybody and keep this show rolling. Dropping out this week, Maryland East Shore Hawks. Boy, they've hit a skid both on the men's and women's side. This one is for the women's. They stayed in the mix a little bit. Boy, he's telling you how you can have all your hopes up going through a couple of games, playing something basketball, and things go awry, injury here, and that break they took that was not one that they chose to take in terms of the weather that created a couple of delays seemed to have affected them, both men's and women's, really in a negative way. With that being said, let's see about receiving votes. Southern Jaguars, 9-4, 39 points, playing some good basketball. A lot of people thought they would be strong this year. They're still strong, but that lets you know what it takes to get in the top five, as they still are playing some pretty good basketball, but they're outside of the top five. We just talked about the Maryland Eastern Shore Hawks. They played so well for so long that they're still in the mix, even though they kind of went on a slump here of late. 31 points. They're out of the MEAC. Right behind them is a team that's really hot, however, which is Coppin State Eagles, that have improved to 6-4 and lit a match in terms of what they are getting done with 17 points. And then you had the Grambling State Tigers that had a couple of big victories to get them to 500. Kudos for continuing to have a good couple of basketball games as they went on the road, Texas, and got some tough wins on the road. They improved to 6-6, but not enough to get in the top five. So let's look at the top five programs and week number 7 at the women's major division basketball poll rankings. Starting with number 5, the Alabama State Hornets, 12-12, 9-4, playing some really good basketball, strong play. Now, surprised some people for first year in terms of Janetta Hayes-Perry for those. Should say just Hayes now. But 40 points, not ranked this week. She's climbed all the way with her team up to number 5 as they are buzzing. That Alabama State and Alabama A&M rematch should be a fascinating one to close out the season. With that, let's go to number 4. Norfolk State has found a way to keep themselves in the mix. Probably upset in some people's mind early, but they're doing back to what they're used to doing over their legacy. The women of Norfolk State, the Spartans, are 13-12 and 8-2 as they are in the mix for the top of the conference race. 57 points, and they move up one slot. Bringing us to number 3, Alcorn State Braves, 14-10. They're 11-2 overall, talking about playing some great basketball, 64 points, 4th. So they move up a spot as they just continue to win and move up the rankings. Be fascinating to see what that looks like as they continue to get it done. They have lost to the number 1 team, but that's not the only thing that hasn't went right for them this season. At that being said, number 2, Howard Bison have continued to win at 19-7, right on the edge of getting to 20 wins. At the major division this early is really nice. They're 9-1 in conference race to let you know that they are showing off 1 first place vote, 7 3-points. As they have avenged that loss, they are moving up a slot from number 3 last week, and they are knocking at the door. But number 1, Alabama A&M Bulldogs, they remain number 1. They have solidified that number 1 spot with a couple of more first place votes. You sit at 79 points as they added 2 votes to their number 1 rankings that a lot of people have them, exactly 7, I should say. And Alabama A&M Bulldogs solidify the number 1 spot in week number 7 as they are just getting it done. Very solid, big wins this weekend. With that being said, I'm going to start with you, A.D. Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of the major division ranking for the women in week number 7?
Dr. Cavil, Dr. Cavil, Dr. Cavil, man. This was a little bit tougher.
Okay.
I understand. Well, there's one team that I think has a good argument to be in there, and that being the Lady Jaguars from down there at Southern, who are also tied at 9-4 with Alabama State. Alabama State does have the head-to-head against Southern, but Southern is above 500 overall.
Yes.
Southern does have those couple of big non-conference victories, so
Yes.
could make an argument of moving Southern into and Alabama State out of the top five. 3 to 4, you really splitting hairs between Alcorn and Norfolk. I really think we are splitting hairs. Both of them are high. And the thing is, these are two teams in their respective conferences that always get hot at the end. Alcorn has a more famous story of getting hot at the end. We've seen Norfolk go wire to wire. So it's really going to be interesting. Can Howard hold on in the MEAC?
That's a good point.
Can Howard hold on? And can Alabama State duplicate what Jackson State did about 4 years ago when they lost the opening game of the season in conference and went through the rest of the conference unscathed?
That's crazy.
That's what I'm looking for.
A&M?
Alabama State, Alabama A&M, yes.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Great points. I will say this about Alabama State. I'm fascinated that you looked at Southern, particularly as you alluded to that Southern lost, and not only did Alabama State get them, but it was on the road. Southern lost that game at home. It was part of the 3-game losing streak, so it lets you know how Southern was rolling before that with just one conference loss. But to your point, I will say this: Southern has to travel to Alabama State.
Yeah.
That March 3rd, as they start to close out the season on Tuesday. So they get a chance to get a revenge on the road at that. So it'll be fascinating. I think that's one to keep your eyes on since you pointed out, that closeness in terms of them just being out. So it'll be interesting to see as things close, as you mentioned. Go ahead, Eddie.
Question before we turn it over to Charles. SWAC and BIAC, has everybody either made up or scheduled their makeup games from those from all the weather that we had back in late January? I'm just curious on that.
The one I hadn't seen is the Grambling women. I think they're missing a game. That I haven't heard anything about the rescheduled play of that game. And then Maryland Eastern Shore, speaking of the team that's tough right now, they hadn't been able to make up their game. We just saw a South Carolina State game that was canceled this Monday. So there are a couple of games canceled. So I'm not sure they're going to be able to get all those games in.
And the only reason is because how do those affect tiebreakers, standings, and everything else?
Their winning percentage, as you know, but it does make a challenge.
It does make a challenge.
In terms of lining up for the tournament. And some of that is going to be lobbying of how much those coaches try to make up those games. And then you got the ADs in terms of they got to finance it. So it's going to be fascinating to see where the conference leadership leans. I heard you talking about this on Sunday as you all did the show, talking about, in the SIEC, some of that discussion is based on the need to make it up in terms of how it would affect seeding is one of the components that the SIEC uses to determine later in the season whether a game will need to be made up.
And styles make fights come tournament time, so you may
right.
play the game, you may make it up and get a worse opponent because styles make fights.
Yes, I like the way you put that because you're absolutely right. You never know how that decision can affect you in a good or bad way, positive, negative, if you would. Charles, with that being said, got you a chance to kind of opine on this even a little more.
Yeah.
With AD Drew breaking it down and having his recommendation that Southern should slide up to the 5 spot, which means Alabama State would be just on the outside looking in. Were you in the top 5 overall, or specifically on that comment?
I think you can make an argument for Southern, but I know that game is still sitting out there where Southern can really make a statement, because Alabama A&M, they finish out Southern. They take on Southern at home, so I'm okay with Alabama State being there for this week.
You sound like you trying to hedge your bets, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm good with Alabama State being there this week. The most impressive thing I think this week for me is Alabama A&M, the way they beat up on UAPB. I thought that game would be much closer than it actually was. 28-point win for Alabama A&M. They're playing probably their best basketball of the season at this point. What I'm just kind of taking a look at their schedule. Can they go all the way, AD? Yes, they can. The game at Bethune-Cookman this weekend, I'm going to be paying attention to that. I know we haven't gotten to that segment yet, but that one is kind of interesting to me. They only beat them by 5 at home. So when Alabama A&M makes the trip to Daytona, that one will be kind of interesting to me to see if they can keep the momentum all the way through the end of the season. And then, they're playing with house money the last 3 games with Alabama State, Grambling, and Southern all coming to Huntsville. So it'll be curious. I think this is a very special team. And watching them night in, night out do what they do, Dawn Thornton has a very, very good squad. I'm very impressed by them.
Yeah, really coaching them well. Really exciting basketball. Mm-hmm. And as we see in this age, with some of the teams we're hearing with intriguing enough on the women's side, more it seems than the men, but you see a little bit there with players discontent leaving their team.
Yeah.
The ability to push players hard, still make it fun. Obviously, winning tends to cure a lot of things when things are struggling, but I want to give her credit for the fact that she's been able to do that. I think that says a lot, particularly this year. But that's something I think that we need to keep our eyes on in terms of the turnover and how it's not only, when we think about football, we affects you at the end of the season, certainly championship ways. But now in basketball, it seems like on the women's side more than not that you start to see this during the conference race, middle season, certainly through the, if you would, second half, middle third, if you would, of the season. So I'm intrigued about that. Let's take our last break. We'll come back on the other side, talk about the standings a little bit, and then we'll get into some key matchups based on those standings. And as we start to close it down, you're getting to the point where you have just a handful of games left pretty much on the schedule to decide a regular season championship, and that means seeding into the tournament. We'll be right back after our last break, and we'll come back on the other side and get it done.
From cancer care to accidental injuries to cardiac care, we all know that there are times that you can't control what happens in your life. But with Globe Life Family Heritage, you can be prepared to weather the storm when it comes. Call Dr. Beverly Eagle Rogers at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at globelifefamilyheritage.com. With over 25 years of serving communities, Dr. Beverly Eagles Rogers is here to help you and your family through difficult times. Dr. Beverly takes pride in Globe Life being one of the few companies that returns 100% of premiums to clients that stay healthy. So for more information, call Dr. Beverly Eagle Rogers at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at globelifefamilyheritage.com.
And we have to fund our kids in these colleges.
Compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a loss, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
My apologies, Doc. I'm gonna say this. I didn't see you was off screen when I cut the commercial short, or else I would have kept it running.
It's all good. It's all good. I put my little feet to pattern and moving back on the screen. They wouldn't even notice it was for that. But it's funny how things go on behind the scene, and you got to get stuff done. With that being said, let's get into the records. Let's start with the SWAC standings, since we just talked about the rankings of some SWAC teams in terms of who should be number 5. Southern Jaguars of Alabama State that are tied at 9-4. We would figure that would be the case. Let's start at the bottom, work our way up. Prairie View 0-13. I guess the question is, can they get a win? I think you see them play Grambling at home a little close. Got away from credit to Grambling as they got to 6-6 and receiving votes. It was a needed victory for them. But Mississippi Valley. But Valley is not a team that you can take lightly, but that's the one. If you can get a little revenge on the word and get it, that's probably where you're looking at your victory. If not, it's a tough one on your first season to not get a conference win. Certainly means that you have a chance to go prove something in terms of the recruiting lines. Talking about the Valley matchup, they're in that second to last spot, sitting at 3-9 in the conference race. Bethune-Cookman is behind them at 4-9. You have Texas Southern that has fallen on hard times. They're at the bottom third of the conference, as you would, sitting at 5-8. The next 4 in terms of that middle quadrant is FAMU sitting at 6-7. Jackson State sitting at 6-7. Pine Bluff has lost a couple and slid a little bit as they are at 6-7. And then you have Grambling State sitting at 6-6. As I said, I believe they have a makeup game. We'll see what that looks like. Top 4, and really are shoulders above the rest. You're talking about a 5.5 game between the top spot and that middle third, if you would, of teams, those 4 in the middle. Essentially a 2-game lead between Southern and Grambling. Southern tied with Alabama State, both sit at 9-4. You have Alcorn sitting at 11-2 that are pushing Alabama A&M in terms of their regular season that is in the top spot, sitting at 12-1. Anything for you, Charles? You have Alabama A&M Bulldogs sitting with a 12-game win streak.
Mm-hmm.
The next biggest win streak would be the Grambling that has won 3 straight games. And you have those Braves, Hornets, Jaguars that have all won 2 straight games. You have a losing streak going on with Texas Southern that have lost 4 straight.
Yeah.
And obviously PV that has lost 18 straight. Where are you in terms of what stands out with you in terms of record? What comes to mind when you hear that?
Looking at the top 4, I mean, I think Alcorn being 11-2. That's the record at least that I take a look at, and I just did not see, especially with what one of their main players that they lost from last year. Didn't expect for them to be right back in the thick of things. Literally, that one game, behind Alabama A&M. So, that's why I'm kind of looking at, is there a potential slip up for A&M somewhere along the way? Be it.
Let me give you the last schedule since you bring that up. It's a great point. You got Alabama A&M going into Florida. They go to FAMU first Thursday, and then Saturday matchup double Bethune-Cookman. Then they have the rivalry game at Alabama A&M, Huntsville. And then you have their hosting. They get the last 3 at home. It's big. They host Grambling, and then they host Southern. So that could be a key one, the last one, in terms of crowning that regular season champion to see if you get it outright, or would you maybe have to share it? Although they do have the advantage in terms of seeding because they have the head-to-head matchup.
Well, I think if you're talking about playing their best basketball going into the tournament, these I think are the best teams. I mean, when you start taking a look at, I even think that Bethune-Cookman game was going to be interesting Saturday. But Alabama State, Grambling, and Southern, if you can finish that out 3-0, I mean, teams are going to be hard pressed to take you out in the tournament. So they are absolutely a team that I'm paying attention to over the next couple of weeks.
I'm gonna shift to you, Drew. But before I do that, I'm gonna give you the Braves schedule since those are the two we're looking at the top. Jackson State at Alcorn, the rivalry game. This Saturday, you have Alcorn State at Texas Southern. You have Alcorn State at Prairie View, the Texas two-step, if you would. And then to close out the season, you have your last two, which takes you to Valley, another rivalry game. This one you host at home, and then you have Pine Bluff at home. So interesting schedule to close things up. Told you about the standing, Drews. What were your thoughts when you heard the standing? What came to mind for you?
Let me be honest with you, Dr. Cavil.
Always.
And I'm going to be a homer on this one.
Sure.
My thing when I'm looking at the stand is the 4-6 win teams that we have there. And the battle for 6. The battle for 6 becomes interesting because if you get to the 6th spot, you don't have to play those extra games on Monday and Tuesday. So that's where those
alliance for the tournament is fascinating. I like that thought.
Yeah, you if you're one of those Grambling, Pine Bluff, Jackson State, FAMU, and Texas Southern, one game behind all of those. That's where the jockeying comes in, because all of them are trying to get to that 6th spot, Dr. Cavil. And we had the discussion on Sunday. I think in this format, this tournament format that we have, the advantage actually goes to teams 3 through 6. And when you're in that quadrant or third, whatever we want to call it, because obviously 7 through 12, you've got to play a minimum of 1 extra game, if not 2 extra games. So disadvantage right there.
No doubt.
But let's flip that though. You're 1, you're 2. You have to, when you get to Atlanta, you have to start off with 4 game plans, because you don't know who your opponent is going to be. You have to start off with the 2 Monday opponents. You got to drop those, and then then you got to go to your Tuesday opponent to figure out who your opponent is going to be on Wednesday. So you really only going to get a night of film, maybe a walkthrough to prepare for your first round opponent, Dr. Cavil, if you're in the 1 or the 2 spot, versus if you're in that 3 through 6, those 2 days that you're sitting around Atlanta, you could actually prepare for that opponent, Dr. Cavil. So, and let's think about it. It's even worse if you're in that spot where you don't play until Thursday. So
that's a long wait.
That's a long time to sit if you have to be there for the banquet on Sunday and not play until Thursday. So 3 through 6 on Wednesday, I think if you're looking at teams to call who maybe pull the upset, those are your teams who's in that 3 to 6 spot, men or women, who play on Wednesday. Those teams to me have the best advantage going into the tournament.
Good stuff. Brian, are you listening? As you start to look at your ESPN odds, you need to take a little scheduling framework look at this as well, as he does his thing. Shout out to Michael as well, Road Dog, that has a good time in terms of Las Vegas festivities. Before we get into MEAC in terms of those matchups, and then I'll let AD Drew also give us any insight on the mid-majors. Big games this week, Alabama State at Bethune-Cookman. We talked a little bit about that. Texas Southern at Pine Bluff, Alabama A&M at Florida A&M, Prairie View at Mississippi Valley. So this is the Thursday game. We're going to get one. That might be it. Then you have a slew of games, 6 games on Saturday. Rivalry game, Jackson State at Alcorn State, Alabama A&M at Bethune-Cookman, Prairie View, Pine Bluff, Alabama State at FAMU. You have the rivalry game of Grambling at Southern, Texas Southern at Mississippi Valley. Let me give you the standings for the MEAC, gentlemen. I'm going to stick with you, Drew, get your thoughts and see if you have any thoughts. You have Delaware State struggling at 1-9, South Carolina State at 2-7, Morgan State at 3-7, Central at 3-6. Your top four happen to be Coppin State 6-4, University of Maryland Eastern Shore at 7-3. They've lost 2 straight. Norfolk State at 8-2. They've won 3 straight. And you have Howard at 9-1 that has won 7 straight games. On the other side, you have South Carolina State that's lost 6 and Delaware State that has lost 5. 80 Drew, in terms of the MEAC, what are your thoughts in terms of those standings?
I'm interested to see Coppin State.
Yeah.
Because when you look at Coppin State and this run they've been on,
winning 5 straight, to your point.
But who have those opponents been?
Yes.
It's everybody who is below them in the standings right now, Dr. Cavil.
Yeah.
That's right.
They don't have a win. They're number 4. They do not have a win against those top 3.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that's the team that I'm interested to see. Are they fool's gold? You know, are they just a mediocre team, or were those tune-up games against that bottom half something that's going to build momentum against when they play those top 3?
Exactly.
That's the team that I'm interested in the MEAC.
Yeah.
Question of the day. Good one, Drew. Charles, where are you?
I mean, verbatim in terms of Coppin State. Are they fool's gold? I think you mentioned it. They kind of fatten up on the schedule, this part of the schedule at least. But, I mean, going down the stretch, you see them, Maryland Eastern Shore, they host, Ed Howard, and then they host Norfolk State. So who are they? Are they for real? Is this 5-game win streak for real? Are they playing their best ball at this time of the year? Can they carry it into the next few games?
Good stuff. You have a makeup game with Central at South Carolina State tomorrow, and then you have your 4 games on Saturday. Full slate: Delaware State at Morgan State, North Carolina Central at Howard. You have South Carolina State at Norfolk State, Maryland Eastern Shore at Coppin State. Probably the matchup you look based on your comments there. That being said, let me go back to you, Drew, before we close it. Anything at the mid-major level that we need to make sure we keep our eyes on?
Most of the NAIAs are going to finish up this week. A lot of tournaments are going to be beginning at some point in time next week. Some of them begin as early as Monday. Some of them will begin more midweek. So just keep an eye out if one of the institutions that you follow is a NAIA. Let's keep a look at those games. I'll tell you one team: Arkansas Baptist, Tougaloo, Thursday. You know, that's one to keep an eye out on. We've been talking. Arkansas Baptist has been hanging around different people's polls. I know they've been hanging around the BCSN Sports Rap poll. So not as much love here on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, but that's gonna be a game that's gonna tell me whether they are for real on the NAIA level. Also, Dega and Philander in the HBCU AC on tomorrow. Switch it over quickly to the SIAC, specifically on staying with the women's side. You know, wasn't that early? I was talking about Edward Waters, Miles. You could possibly flip those two. Well, Thursday night we're gonna kind of find out who's for real as those two go heads up on Thursday.
Nice.
So you know, either my argument is gonna be solidified, or once again Drew is gonna look stupid. So it won't be the first time, won't be the last time on that. I'm interested also, and we're talking women only. I'm interested Saturday in Lane and Clark, Atlanta. Battle of 2 second place teams in their respective in their respective divisions on the women's side there. Quickly going over to the CIAA, Johnson C and Winston-Salem. It's just something about those two. But the one I want to look at is tomorrow night, Fayetteville State, Claflin.
Hmm.
Claflin been hanging. It has been
Yes.
right there below Fayetteville and Winston-Salem in the South. Can they make some noise? I think that is going to be the one that is going to tell something. And Saturday, Union and State. I mean, do I need to say anything else about that one?
All right.
No, that's a good
Okay.
one. You said it. That's perfect. Rivalry matchup. Charles, last thing I want to close and get you on this. What did you see? I know it's early baseball, different type of weather. Anything stand out? Any team, any player stood out in the tournament? Power, HBC Power baseball tournament there in Jackson.
Grandma's very much as advertised. They brought the bats back again this season. When you talk about guys like Cameron Hill, Chris Marcellus, who each had a home run in this HBC Power Series. But I think the surprise for me, at least, was watching Prairie View. Prairie View played a tremendous brand of baseball, beat Jackson State their opening night in terms of taking on Jackson State. Alcorn, impressive. The last win, they got a win against Jackson State on the Sunday night game, winning extra innings. So teams that you've seen traditionally or over the past few years traditionally kind of toward the bottom of the SWAC standings. That was a very interesting juxtaposition to see them fight and get the win against a team that you traditionally see in the upper echelon. So it was good baseball being played. A lot of what you kind of expect at the opening series, if you will. Arms aren't there yet, in terms of guys locating pitches. So there were a lot of hit batsmen, but overall, it was some good baseball being played. And like I said, I think Coach Daniel Doolin has something going on out there at Prairie.
So you,
I was going to ask about that, Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
What,
good look.
what was the pitching and what was the defense? Was the ball kicked around, or were teams playing good defense this early in the season?
I think
I
I think the ball was kicked around a little bit, but I saw some good defensive play from especially shortstops, and we talked about this all throughout the series. You got some center fielders who can flat go get it. Every center fielder in this HBC Power Series, they had a play or two where they were running in the gaps and chasing down balls. And I mean, it highlights the athleticism, the speed that's in the conference. A lot of players ran out, ground balls in the infield and were able to beat them out. So, it speeds it up. It speeds you up on defense. Of course, we're going to see teams lay down bunts. Tremendous job on a lot of teams being able to lay down bunts, move runners over, things of that nature. So it was good baseball being played. It's just, I think, early season, you got to be able to throw strikes. So that was nerves, I think, for the first few games of the season. But I think guys will get better during the course of the year.
Can I get one other one in?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
You're talking about bunts and everything, and just one of these things I always look at early. Were teams executing their bunt coverage like they needed to, or was there confusion? Were the outfielders hitting the cutoffs as they were throwing the ball to the infield? Those are some things that I always kind of look at. Some of those things preventing giving up the extra base, and on the flip side, were the runners able to take advantage and push and taking the extra base when they should. We don't have coaches putting up stop signs too early, and look at those little small parts of the game that make a difference as you get into conference play.
I think you make a great point. My pet peeve is throwing behind runners. I can't stand that because you do have the tendency to kick the ball around a little bit from that standpoint. But you see the normal things that you see at the beginning of the year. You try to pick off a runner and gets in the right field. Things of that nature, but you see a couple of base running mistakes where I think there were a couple of times just a base runner just lost, a track of how many outs were in the inning. So you see all the early season stuff, where guys you kind of need to lock in a little bit more. But I was impressed. Outfield play, center fielders. Jackson State has a right fielder who has a cannon for an arm, Asafa Jones. That name jumps out for me. And then my right fielder for Graham, a name escapes me right now, but preseason all SWAC selection, tremendous bat. But he also has a cannon for an arm out there in right field.
Excellent. So it looks like you'll keep an eye and be able to give an update of what takes place down there at Vero Beach this weekend, where we get some more HBCU matchups. I think this is nice because you get Prairie View back down there, Southern Grambling, but you bring in Florida schools in that area.
Yeah.
Fascinating to kind of
And
see.
I want to say this, Dr. Bill, MLB.com did a great job. Mississippi Mud Monsters rolling out the red carpet. That was very good to see in terms of highlighting HBCU baseball this weekend.
Rest in power, Michael Coca, as we get back into it. First season without the legend that took up the space in a lot of ways of what Ruffin did, Professor Reginald Ruffin did, Black College Baseball as he moved into Black College Nines. You can still get your updates. In fact, A.D. Drew does some writing over there, as you can tell with the question he does. So we're going to certainly keep that legend alive and multiple reasons. But I wanted to purposely close on that note to make sure that we mentioned the ancestor's name as we talk about baseball and getting it going. Thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Michael Washington, Charles Bishop, A.D. Drew, making sure that he gives time and his love and his energy. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Give a shout out to Wilton as he did his part as well. That's every Tuesday and Thursday. So we'll be back on Thursday to give you the men's side of things for mid-major and major division, to let you know what took place. Obviously, we had some big-time games on Monday. Things are getting fascinating, interesting as Bethune-Cookman hooked. So we'll get a chance to see what that did with them in the standings and who would maybe try to climb over. We'll see if that is indeed the case. A little tease there. We look forward to next Thursday as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyattacavil. That's Threads, Facebook, Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Facebook. That's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles.
Of course.
A.D.
I am somebody.
All day.
Lecture.
Nice. Dismissed.